The great hall of the Galactic Council shone with light from 1,000 floating orbs. 7 tall chairs stood in a half-circle at the center. Each chair was made for a different kind of being. Some were wide for the 4-armed Vexari. Others were filled with water for the fish-like Aquari. One had a special heat lamp for the reptilian Scalari. High Counselor Tae-hyun walked to his chair in the middle. His blue skin glowed softly in the dim light. 2 small antennae on his head moved slowly back and forth, sensing the mood in the room. "Let us begin the 457th meeting of the Galactic Council," Tae-hyun said in a clear voice. "We have much to discuss today." The other 6 counselors sat quietly. They represented the most powerful species in the known galaxy. For 3,000 years they had kept peace among the stars. "First," Tae-hyun continued, "we must address the growing problem of the scourge attacks in the outer systems." The word scourge made the room grow cold. Everyone knew about these terrible enemies. They were like insects but as big as bears. They attacked in huge swarms and took over planets. No one knew where they came from or what they wanted. "The scourge have destroyed 3 more colonies this month," said Counselor Maru of the rock-like Geomari. His voice sounded like grinding stones. "Our defenses are not strong enough." Counselor Jiwoo raised her hand. She was the youngest member of the council and represented the Luminar, beings made partly of light. Her skin had a soft glow that changed colors with her mood. Right now it was a worried yellow. "High Counselor," she said, "I believe we should look at the old stories again, the myths about the Terrans." A loud groan came from Counselor Drac of the Scalari. His scales rattled in annoyance. "Not the human myths again," he hissed. "Jiwoo, we have real problems to solve. We don't have time for fairy tales." Tae-hyun held up his hand for quiet. "Let her speak." Jiwoo stood up. Her glow changed to a determined blue. "These are not just stories. Look at the evidence I've collected." She waved her hand and images appeared in the air. Old drawings, ancient texts, and star maps floated around the room. In every corner of our galaxy, there are stories about these humans. They all describe the same beings. 2 arms, 2 legs. No special powers, no natural weapons. Yet somehow these stories say they were the most feared warriors in the galaxy. "Yes, yes," said Counselor Zir of the Crystal Prismari. Light sparkled through her transparent body. "And they supposedly blew up their own planet in a great war. Very sad, very made up." "But what if they didn't all die?" Jiwoo asked. "What if some survived?" "Impossible," said Counselor Vax of the Gas Cloud Nebulari. His misty form swirled with doubt. "These myths are from 10,000 years ago. No species lives that long. And no species could survive after destroying their own world," added Counselor Pell of the plant-like Florari. Leaves rustled as she shook her head. Tae-hyun looked at the young Luminar with kind eyes. "Jiwoo, I understand your interest in ancient history, but these human myths are just that, myths, stories to warn children about the dangers of war." "But the stories also say they fought the scourge," Jiwoo insisted. "They knew how to defeat them." The room grew quiet. This was new information. "Where did you find this?" Tae-hyun asked. Jiwoo pointed to an ancient scroll in the floating images. "It's in the oldest texts. The humans had special weapons against the scourge. They drove them back. But the war weakened them, and then their own civil war finished them." "Counselor," Drac laughed, a harsh sound like dry scales rubbing together. "So these amazing warriors could beat the scourge but not themselves? Very convenient for your story." "I just think," Jiwoo started, but a loud alarm cut her off. Red lights flashed throughout the hall. A guard ran in, his 4 Vexari arms holding different weapons. "High Counselor," he shouted. "Unknown ships have entered the system." "How many?" Tae-hyun asked, standing quickly. "Hundreds," the guard said. "Maybe thousands. They appeared out of nowhere. Our sensors didn't see them coming." "Scourge?" asked Maru, his rocky form cracking with stress. "No," said the guard. "Nothing like we've ever seen before. They're heading straight for us." Tae-hyun moved quickly to the command center next to the Great Hall. The other counselors followed. A large screen showed the space around their station. What they saw made them freeze. Hundreds of ships moved in perfect formation. They were sleek and powerful. Their design was unlike any known species. They had no clear weapons, yet something about them seemed deeply threatening. "How did they get past our detection grid?" asked Zir, her crystal body reflecting the red emergency lights. "Unknown," said a technician. "They seem to have some kind of technology that hides them until they choose to be seen." "Are they preparing to attack?" Taehyun asked. "No, sir. They're just waiting. In formation." Suddenly, the main screen changed. A face appeared. It looked almost like a luminar, but with no glow. Its skin was tan with dark hair on top of its head. 2 eyes, 1 nose, 1 mouth. Simple. Basic. Familiar from 1,000 ancient drawings. "Greetings, Galactic Council," the being said in perfect common speech. "I am Captain Do-hyun of the Earth Alliance flagship Horizon. We come in peace." The room fell silent. Everyone stared at the screen. "It can't be," whispered Counselor Pell. "Impossible," muttered Counselor Vax. Jiwoo's body glowed bright white with excitement. "They're real," she said. "The humans are real." Taehyun stepped forward, his antennae straight up in alarm. "This is High Counselor Taehyun of the Galactic Council. We welcome you. But how is this possible? Your kind is known to us only in myths. Stories say you destroyed yourselves thousands of years ago." The human on the screen smiled. It was an expression both friendly and somehow frightening. "We nearly did," Captain Do-hyun said. "But we survived. We rebuilt. And now we have returned to the stars." "Why have you come?" Taehyun asked. "Why now, after all this time?" The human's face grew serious. "Because we encountered an old enemy on our way here. One we thought was long gone." He paused. "You call them the Scourge. We have come to warn you, and to help." Taehyun looked at Jiwoo, who could barely contain her excitement. Then he looked back at the screen, at the face of a myth come to life. "We have much to discuss, Captain Do-hyun of Earth," he said slowly. "But first I must ask, is it true that your fleet knows how to fight the Scourge?" The human captain nodded. His eyes held something the counselors had never seen before, a strange mix of sadness and determination. "We don't just know how to fight them," he said. "We know how to beat them. We've done it before." Outside the station window, the human ships waited in perfect formation, an armada from legend, a myth no longer. Captain Do-hyun stood on the bridge of the horizon. Through the large window he could see the Galactic Council station. It was a beautiful structure, like a silver flower floating in space. Around it, ships from all 7 council species moved about. "They're sending a message, Captain," said communications specialist Minji. Her fingers moved quickly over her control panel. "They invite us to dock and meet with the council." Do-hyun nodded. "Accept the invitation. Tell Ambassador Hyejin to prepare her team." Minji spoke into her headset, then turned back to the captain. "Sir, they're asking how many ships we have. Should I tell them?" Do-hyun thought for a moment. "Tell them the truth. No reason to hide it now." "Yes, sir." The truth was that the human fleet had over 2,000 ships. Some were small and fast. Others were huge carriers. All of them had technology far beyond what the council species currently used. Humans had spent centuries rebuilding and improving their technology after the Great War that nearly ended them. "Ambassador Hyejin is ready, sir," Minji reported. "Her shuttle is preparing to leave." "Good," said Do-hyun. "Let's hope this goes well." On the council station, all 7 counselors waited in the main meeting room. Guards stood at every door. No one knew what to expect from these humans who had suddenly appeared. "I still can't believe it," said Counselor Vax, his misty form swirling with excitement. "The myths are real." "We don't know that yet," warned Taehyun. "These could be tricksters using our legends against us." "No," said Jiwoo firmly. "I've studied all the ancient texts. They match exactly what we're seeing. The ship designs, their appearance, everything fits. A soft tone sounded and a guard announced, "The human shuttle has docked, they are coming." The doors opened and 5 humans walked in. They wore simple blue uniforms with a symbol on the chest, a circle with lines radiating out like a sun. The one in front was shorter than the others. She had long black hair tied back and dark, serious eyes. She stepped forward and bowed slightly. "I am Ambassador Hyejin of the Earth Alliance. Thank you for welcoming us to your station." Taehyun stepped forward as well. "I am High Counselor Taehyun. We are honored to meet you, though I must admit we are also confused. Until today we believed humans were only legends." Hyejin smiled. "We've been gone a long time. After the Great War, our home planet was badly damaged. We had to focus all our energy on rebuilding. We closed our borders and disappeared from galactic affairs. But the myths say you destroyed yourselves," said Counselor Drac, his scales shifting with suspicion. "We nearly did," Hyejin admitted. "Our war was terrible. Billions died, but some of us survived. We learned from our mistakes. We unified our planet and worked together to heal our world." Jiwoo stepped closer, her body glowing bright with curiosity. "The ancient texts mention that humans fought the Scourge before. Is that true?" Hyejin's face grew serious. "Yes. The Scourge were the reason for our first expansion into space. They attacked our colonies. We fought back and pushed them far away from our systems. But they've returned," said Taehyun. "Yes. We encountered them on our journey here. They've grown stronger, and they're moving toward the heart of the galaxy." The other members of Hyejin's team had been quiet until now. One of them, a tall man with short gray hair, spoke up. "I am Defense Advisor Jae-hwan. We tracked the Scourge movements for 6 months before coming here. They're not just raiding anymore, they're conquering and building, preparing for a full invasion." The council members looked at each other with worry. This was worse than they had feared. "Why have you come to us?" asked Counselor Maru, his rocky voice rumbling. "After all this time?" Ambassador Hyejin looked each counselor in the eye before answering. "Because we can't fight them alone this time, and neither can you." Back on the horizon, Captain Do-yoon received reports from the ship scanning the nearby systems. "Captain," said Science Officer Yuna, "we've detected Scourge scout ships in 3 nearby systems. They're watching, staying just out of sensor range of Council technology." Do-yoon frowned. "They're preparing something big. How long do we have?" "Based on their movement patterns, maybe 2 weeks. Maybe less." Lieutenant Commander Seojin, the head of ground forces, stood by the tactical display. "Sir, the Council military is not ready for a major Scourge attack. Their weapons are designed for peacekeeping, not war." Do-yoon knew this was true. The Council had enjoyed peace for so long they had forgotten how to fight. The Scourge had been gone for thousands of years, and the current attacks were just the beginning. "We need to show them what they're facing," Do-hyun said, "and we need to show them that we can help." In the council meeting room, Ambassador Hyejin activated a small device. A 3D image appeared in the center of the room, showing the movement of Scourge ships through the galaxy. "As you can see," she explained, "they're following a pattern. They take over smaller systems first, building their numbers. Then they attack larger targets." "Why didn't we see this?" asked Counselor Pell, her leaves drooping with worry. "Your sensors can't detect their scout ships," said one of Hyejin's team, a woman with short hair and glasses. "I'm Technical Advisor Yuna. We can help upgrade your systems." Taehyun looked troubled. "You're asking us to trust you completely, to let you change our technology, our defenses?" "Yes," said Hyejin simply, "because the alternative is extinction." The room fell silent. The council members looked at each other, unsure what to do. Then alarms started blaring throughout the station. "What's happening?" demanded Taehyun. A guard rushed in. "High Counselor, we've received an emergency signal from the Luminar colony on Elysium. They're under attack." Jiwoo gasped, her glow turning pale with fear. "Elysium? That's my homeworld." The guard continued. The report says it's the largest Scourge fleet ever seen. They've already broken through the outer defenses. Ambassador Heejin turned to her team, then back to the council. Let us help. Our ships are ready. You would fight for a world you don't know? Asked Taehyun. Heejin's eyes were determined. We would fight for all worlds threatened by the Scourge. That's why we came back. Taehyun hesitated only a moment before nodding. We accept your help. Ambassador Hyejin touched a device on her wrist. Hyejin to Horizon. Captain, we have an emergency situation. Captain Dohyun's voice came through clearly. We heard. The fleet is already preparing to jump. We'll lead the way to Elysium. Taehyun looked at the humans with new eyes. He realized that the ancient myths had been right about one thing. Humans moved very quickly when it was time for action. And now, for the first time in 3,000 years, the Galactic Council would go to war, with the help of beings they had thought were only myths just hours before. The human fleet moved quickly. 500 ships jumped to the Elysium system, led by the Horizon. Captain Dohyun stood at the center of the bridge, watching the stars blur and then snap back into focus as they arrived. What they saw made even the battle-hardened humans pause. Elysium was a beautiful world covered in blue oceans and golden continents. But now dark ships swarmed around it like angry insects. The Scourge had brought over 1,000 vessels. 3 small Luminar ships were trying to escape, surrounded by enemy fighters. Status report, Dohyun ordered. Scourge forces have already landed on the main continent, reported Officer Yunha. The colony's defenses are failing. 3 refugee ships are trying to escape but are surrounded. Lieutenant Commander Seo-jun stepped forward. Captain, request permission to lead a ground.
Team, there are still colonists down there.
Dohyun nodded. Approved. Take a rescue team and do what you can. He turned to his communications officer. Minji, contact the Council fleet. Tell them to focus on protecting the refugee ships while we engage the main Scourge force. Yes, sir, Minji replied. Council ships are 20 minutes behind us. Dohyun looked at the tactical display. 20 minutes was too long. They would have to start without help. All ships, attack pattern Delta, he ordered. Target the Scourge vessels surrounding. The refugee ships first, launch fighters. The human fleet moved as one, spreading out in a formation that confused the Scourge. Their ships were faster and more agile than the enemy expected. Human weapons fired with deadly accuracy. On the Luminar refugee ship, Captain Hana watched in amazement as the human vessels cut through the Scourge blockade. Who are they? Asked her first officer. The humans, she said, still not quite believing it. They've come to help. A message came through their communication system. A calm voice said, Luminar vessels, this is Communications Specialist Minji of the Earth Alliance. Move toward the following coordinates. We will clear a path for you. Hana didn't hesitate. Follow their instructions, she told her pilot. They're our only hope. The 3 Luminar ships turned toward the coordinates. Ahead of them, human fighters were destroying Scourge vessels with weapons unlike anything Hana had ever seen. Their technology, she whispered, it's incredible. On the surface of Elysium, Lieutenant Commander Seo-jun led his team through the burning ruins of the main colony. The buildings, once beautiful crystal structures, were now broken and dark. Scourge ground forces moved through the streets, capturing Luminar colonists. Stay close, Seo-jun told his team of 20 soldiers. Remember, Scourge ground troops are connected to their hive mind. They expect logical responses. Be unpredictable. The team moved quickly through the ruins. They carried advanced weapons and war armor that could change color to match their surroundings. Each soldier had trained for years for this kind of mission. They found a group of 50 Luminar colonists hiding in an underground shelter. The colonists' light-based bodies glowed dimly with fear. When they saw the humans, their glow flickered with confusion. We are from Earth, Seo-jun explained simply. We're here to help you escape. One older Luminar stepped forward. The humans from the ancient texts? But you are myths. Seo-jun smiled grimly. Not anymore. Come with us if you want to live. As they led the colonists toward the landing area, where their shuttle waited, A group of 20 Scourge warriors blocked their path. The aliens were large, with hard exoskeletons and too many legs. Their heads had multiple eyes that all moved in the same direction at once, the mark of their hive-mind connection. "Defensive positions," ordered Seojin. His team moved quickly, forming a protective circle around the colonists. The Scourge attacked as one, moving with perfect coordination. They expected the humans to retreat to a more defensible position, the logical move. Instead, Seojin shouted, "Scatter and strike." The human soldiers broke formation and attacked from multiple directions at once. This confused the Scourge warriors, whose hive mind had trouble tracking so many unpredictable movements. One human soldier, Jin, was cut off from the others. 3 Scourge warriors surrounded him. The logical choice was to surrender. Instead, Jin charged directly at the largest warrior, sliding beneath its legs at the last second and firing his weapon upward. The bold move worked. The Scourge, unable to predict such a seemingly foolish action, were too slow to respond. The Luminar colonists watched in amazement. The ancient texts spoke of human unpredictability, but seeing it in action was another thing entirely. Within minutes, the Scourge warriors lay defeated, but more were coming. "We need to move now," Seojin told the colonists. "Our shuttle is 2 kilometers from here." "Some of us cannot move quickly," said the older Luminar. "The children and the elderly will slow you down." Without hesitation, Seojin and his soldiers lifted the weakest Luminar into their arms. "No one gets left behind," Seojin said firmly. "That's the human way." In space, the battle raged on. The human fleet had managed to clear a path for the refugee ships, but more Scourge vessels kept coming. Captain Do-hyun received a message from the planet. "Seojun to Horizon. We have 50 colonists ready for evacuation, but our path to the shuttle is blocked by Scourge forces. Request air support." "Copy that," Do-hyun replied. He turned to his tactical officer. "Send fighters to these coordinates. Clear a path for our ground team." 5 human fighters broke away from the main battle and dived toward the planet's surface. They flew with incredible skill through the atmosphere, targeting Scourge ground forces with precision strikes. On the bridge of the Horizon, Minji called out, "Captain, Council ships have arrived." The Council fleet of 30 vessels had finally reached Elysium. They were outnumbered and outgunned by the Scourge, but they moved in to help anyway. "Open a channel," Do-hyun ordered. The face of a Vexari commander appeared on screen. "This is Commander Zex of the Council Defense Force. We are here to assist. Focus your ships on protecting the refugee vessels," Do-hyun instructed. "We'll handle the main Scourge fleet." "Understood," said Commander Zex, clearly impressed by the humans' confidence despite the overwhelming odds. The battle continued for hours. The human ships took heavy damage, but their advanced shields and weapons kept them fighting. Their tactics confused the Scourge, who were used to facing enemies who retreated when outnumbered. Finally, Seojin's voice came through again. "Ground team to Horizon. We've reached the shuttle with all colonists. Taking off now." A cheer went up on the bridge of the Horizon. Captain Do-hyun allowed himself a small smile before returning to the battle at hand. "All ships, cover the shuttle's escape," he ordered. "Prepare for jump as soon as all our people are clear." The human fighters formed a protective screen around Seojin's shuttle as it lifted off from the burning surface of Elysium. The Scourge sent waves of attackers, but none got through. When the shuttle was safely aboard a human carrier, Do-hyun gave the order. "All ships, jump to the rendezvous point. We've done what we can here." One by one, the human ships disappeared into faster-than-light travel, taking the rescued colonists with them. The Council ships followed. Elysium was lost, but hundreds of lives had been saved, and the Galactic Council had seen firsthand what humans could do in battle. The myths, it seemed, had not exaggerated after all. The Council station was busy with activity. The refugee ships from Elysium had arrived along with the human fleet. Medical teams rushed to help the injured Luminar colonists. Guards watched the humans with a mix of fear and respect. In the main Council chamber, High Counselor Tae-hyun called for order. All 7 counselors were present, along with Captain Do-hyun, Ambassador Hyejin, and Lieutenant Commander Seo-jun. The attack on Elysium changes everything, Tae-hyun said gravely. We can no longer deny that we face a full-scale invasion. Counselor Jiwoo's glow was dim with sadness. My people have lost their home world. Thousands are dead or missing. Many. More would have died without the humans' help, said Counselor Maru. His rocky form seemed heavier than before. We must acknowledge that. Captain Do-hyun stepped forward. The Scourge will attack again soon. They test defenses, learn patterns, then strike where they expect the least resistance. How do you know so much about them? Asked Counselor Drack, his scales rippling with suspicion. Intelligence Officer Jin-young walked into the chamber. She carried an old data device. Her face was serious as she set it on the central table. Because we have fought them before, she said. Over 10,000 years ago, the Scourge invaded our first colony worlds. She activated the device. Images appeared in the air. Ancient battles, human ships fighting against Scourge swarms. This is from our historical archives, Jin-young explained. The first Scourge war lasted 50 years, millions died. We finally drove them back to the far reaches of the galaxy, but the war left us weakened. And then you had your own war, said Tae-hyun. The great war that nearly destroyed you. Jin-young nodded. Yes, after defeating the Scourge. Different. Human factions argued about how to move forward. Some wanted to build more weapons, to be ready if the Scourge returned. Others wanted to focus on peaceful development. The argument turned into conflict, then into war. Our worst mistake, said Ambassador Hyejin softly. We nearly destroyed ourselves and our home planet. The survivors vowed never to let it happen again. So you unified and rebuilt in secret, said Counselor Vax, his misty form swirling with understanding. Yes, Do-hyun confirmed. For thousands of years we stayed in our home system. We healed our planet, we advanced our technology, we watched for signs of the Scourge. And you sent warnings, said Jiwoo suddenly. The ancient texts I found, they were your warnings. Ambassador Hyejin smiled. Yes. Before we withdrew, our ships visited many systems. We left records of our fight with the Scourge, hoping to warn others if they ever returned. But over time our warnings became myths, said Jin-young. Stories about the humans who fought monsters and then disappeared. The council members looked at each other. Everything was starting to make sense. Counselor Zier's crystal body sparkled as she spoke. So the legends were true. But why return now after all this time? 6 months ago, our deep space probes detected Scourge activity, explained Do-hyun. We sent scouts and confirmed our fears. They had returned stronger than before. We knew we had to warn the galaxy. And now they've attacked Elysium, said Tae-hyun. What do they want? The same thing they always want, said Seo-jun grimly. To consume, to expand, to take over every world they find. A heavy silence fell over the room. Then an alarm blared. Red lights flashed. What now? Asked Tae-hyun. A guard rushed in. High Counselor, Scourge ships have been detected entering the system. Hundreds of them. Everyone froze. The attack on Elysium had been a distraction. The real target was the Council itself. How long until they reach us? Asked Do-hyun. Less than an hour, replied the guard. Our defense fleet is still damaged from Elysium, said Counselor Pell, her leaves trembling. We cannot stop them. You can't, said Do-hyun. But we can help. He turned to the humans in the room. Prepare all ships for battle. Call in our reserve fleet. Ambassador Hyejin nodded to Jin-young, who spoke into her communicator. This is Intelligence Officer Jin-young. Authorization Code Phoenix. Deploy the second fleet. Outside the station, space seemed to ripple. Then, as if appearing from nowhere, 500 more human ships materialized. How? Gasped Counselor Drack. Where did they come from? Quantum fold technology, explained Science Officer Yunha, who had just entered the chamber. We can hide our ships between space-time folds. The Scourge can't detect them. Do-hyun looked at Tae-hyun. High Counselor, I need control of your defense grid. We can coordinate with your ships, but we need to work as one force. Tae-hyun hesitated, only briefly. Granted. Do what you must. There's something else, said Yunha. I have a theory. The Scourge hive mind is their strength, but it could also be their weakness. If we synchronize our quantum communication network with your defense grid, we might be able to create a disruption field. What would that do? Asked Tae-hyun. It would confuse them, break their coordination, give us an advantage. But that would mean giving you access to our most secure systems, said Counselor Drac. Yes, said Unha simply. It would. All eyes turned to Tae-hyun. The choice was clear. Trust these mysterious humans completely or face the Scourge alone. Do it, he said. The next 30 minutes were a blur of activity. Human technicians worked with Council engineers to connect their systems. Fighters launched, from both human and Council ships. Defense positions were assigned. On the bridge of the horizon, Captain Do-hyun watched the tactical display as the Scourge fleet approached. All ships in position, reported Minji. Council defenses integrated with our network. Disruption field ready, added Yunha. But it will only work for a short time. The Scourge will adapt. Do-hyun nodded. We only need a short time. He opened a channel to all ships, both human and Council. This is Captain Do-hyun. Today we fight together against an enemy that threatens all life in this galaxy. The Scourge think they know what to expect. Let's show them they're wrong. The Scourge fleet entered firing range. Their ships moved in perfect formation until Yuna activated the disruption field. Suddenly, the Scourge ships faltered. Some stopped moving. Others flew in random directions. Their perfect coordination was broken. Now, ordered Do-hyun. The combined human and Council fleet attacked. Human weapons tore through the confused Scourge ships. Council vessels, guided by human tactical officers, struck with unexpected precision. From the Council station, the 7 counselors watched in amazement. They're doing it, whispered Jiwoo. They're actually winning. No, said Tae-hyun quietly. We are winning, together. The battle raged for hours. The disruption field failed, as Yuna had predicted, but by then the Scourge had lost their advantage. One by one, their ships were destroyed or forced to retreat. When it was over, the combined fleet had suffered losses, but the Council station was safe. The Scourge had been defeated, for now. In the quiet aftermath, a strange truth became clear. The Scourge had avoided human space for millennia. They had returned only when they thought humans were gone. The ancient myths weren't just warnings about the Scourge. They were warnings from the one species the Scourge truly feared. Humans. 1 week after the battle at the Council station, representatives from all species gathered in the Great Hall. The 7 counselors sat in their special chairs. Captain Do-hyun, Ambassador Hyejin, and Admiral Ji-hoon of the Earth Alliance stood before them. Admiral Ji-hoon was older than the other humans. His hair was white and his face showed the marks of many years, but his eyes were sharp and clear. He had traveled from Earth when he heard about the Scourge attacks. This is an historic day, said High Counselor Tae-hyun, his antennae moving slowly with the importance of the moment. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Galactic Council welcomes a new member. The humans of Earth have proven themselves to be friends and protectors of peace. A cheer went up from the crowd. Even Counselor Drac, who had been most suspicious of the humans, nodded his scaly head in approval. Admiral Ji-hoon stepped forward. We are honored to join the Council. For too long, humans have kept to themselves. It is time we rejoin the galactic community. We have seen your ships and your weapons, said Counselor Maru, his rocky voice echoing in the hall. Your technology is far beyond ours. Why do you need an alliance with us? A good question. The humans could easily have taken over the Council worlds if they wanted to. Everyone knew it. Admiral Ji-hoon looked around the room. Because we learned the hard way that strength alone is not enough. The Scourge are coming in greater numbers than ever before. We need each other to survive. Counselor Jiwoo, whose glow had brightened since the rescue of her people, asked, "Admiral, the ancient texts say humans had a special weapon against the scourge. Is this true?" Jihoon nodded. "Yes. We call it the Prometheus Protocol." He signaled to Science Officer Yuna, who activated a holographic display. It showed a small device that seemed simple but was clearly advanced. "The Prometheus Protocol does more than disrupt the scourge hive mind," Yunha explained. "It can completely shut it down in a large area. Without their hive connection, the scourge become confused and uncoordinated." "Why haven't you used this already?" asked Counselor Zir, her crystal body reflecting the light from the hologram. "Because it has limitations," said Yuna. "It only works at close range, and once used, the scourge will adapt within hours. We can only use it once in any battle. We need to combine it with conventional attacks," added Captain Doyun. "Hit them hard when they're vulnerable." "And we need more of these devices," said Admiral Jihoon. "With your help, we can create enough to defend all key systems." Taehyun stood up. "The Council votes unanimously to form an alliance with the humans of Earth. Together we will stand against the scourge." Another cheer filled the hall. But Counselor Jiwoo had one more question. "There's something I still don't understand," she said. "If humans fought the scourge thousands of years ago, why do our oldest texts describe humans in such detail? How did you influence cultures across the galaxy?" Intelligence Officer Jin Young stepped forward. She had been studying this question ever since they arrived. "After the first Scourge War, before our Great War, humans visited many worlds," she explained. "We tried to warn everyone about the scourge. We left records, data, even people who chose to stay as advisors. But then you disappeared," said Taehyun. "And over time the advisors died, the records were lost or damaged, and all that remained were stories," finished Jin Young. "Stories about humans who fought monsters from the stars. Stories that became myths. And the scourge became myths too," said Ambassador Hyejin. "Until they returned." Counselor Vax's misty form swirled thoughtfully. "So the ancient texts weren't warnings about the dangers of war. They were actual warnings about the scourge." "Both, actually," said Admiral Jihoon with a sad smile. "We warned about the scourge, but our own Great War proved we didn't listen to our own advice about peace." The room grew quiet as everyone considered this. Then a guard rushed in. "High Counselor, long-range sensors have detected a massive energy signature approaching from the outer systems." Captain Dohyun looked at Yuna, who checked her datapad. "It's them," she said. "The main scourge fleet. This is much bigger than anything we've seen so far." "How many ships?" asked Taehyun. Yunha's face was grim. "Thousands. Maybe tens of thousands. They're coming for us all." Admiral Jihoon turned to the council. "This is what we feared. The scourge remember their defeat at human hands. They avoided our space for millennia. But now they're coming in full force to ensure there are no survivors this time." The hall erupted in fearful voices. Some called for evacuating the core worlds, others for surrender. But High Counselor Taehyun raised his hands for silence. "We will not run. We will not surrender." He looked at Admiral Jihoon. "What do you suggest?" "A unified defense," said Jihoon. "All ships, all weapons, all species working together. We'll need every Prometheus device we can build. And we'll need everyone to fight, not just soldiers." "But can we win?" asked Counselor Pell, her leaves drooping with worry. Admiral Jihoon looked at her honestly. "I don't know. But I do know this. Humans don't give up. We've faced extinction before. We survived. We rebuilt. We came back stronger. And now we're not alone," added Captain Dohyun. Through the large windows of the hall, they could see ships assembling, human vessels with their sleek designs, council ships being upgraded with human technology, fighters and carriers and destroyers forming the largest fleet the galaxy had ever seen. Counselor Jiwoo stood beside Ambassador Hyejin, watching the ships. "You know," Jiwoo said quietly, In all the ancient texts, there was one thing about humans that I found most interesting. What was that? Asked Hyejin. They said that humans had no special abilities, no natural weapons, no extraordinary strength or speed. They were just humans. Hyejin smiled. And yet here we are. Yes, said Jiwoo, her glow brightening with hope. Here you are. No longer myths, but real allies. On the horizon, Lieutenant Commander Seojin prepared his ground forces for the coming battles. His soldiers checked their weapons and armor. Among them were new recruits, Luminar fighters who had survived Elysium, Vexari warriors with their forearms, even some Scalari with their natural armor. Are you sure this will work? Asked a young Luminar soldier. Mixing species in fighting. Units? Seojin nodded. Humans learned long ago that diversity is strength in battle. Different abilities, different ways of thinking. The Scourge can't predict what they don't understand. Across the station, in laboratories and workshops, science, Officer Ayuna worked with engineers from all Council species to build more Prometheus devices. They had only days before the Scourge arrived, but hands from 7 different species worked together with surprising speed. In the command center, Captain Do-hyun and Admiral Ji-hoon reviewed battle plans with High Counselor Tae-hyun. The Scourge will expect us to protect the core worlds first, said Do-hyun. We need to surprise them. Tae-hyun nodded. For too long we've been predictable. Perhaps it's time we learn to think more like humans. As they spoke, the first reports came in of Scourge scout ships testing the outer defenses. The final war was beginning. Admiral Ji-hoon looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, a vast enemy force was coming. An enemy that had once been driven, back by humans alone. Now they would face humans and their new allies. They thought humans were myths, he said quietly. A story to frighten children. They were wrong. Behind him, the combined fleet of humans and council species prepared for battle, the greatest fleet ever assembled, ready to fight for the future of all life in the galaxy. No longer separated by myth and legend, but united in the face of a common enemy. The humans had returned to the stars, and this time, they had brought friends. The end.